Good morning, 5th grade. We're going to continue reading in our novel, Esperanza Rising, and we're still in chapter 4. Before we get started, you have a quick write. It says, what kind of person is Esperanza? Why do you think this? Press pause to write down your answer and play when you're ready for the focus question. It says, how does Esperanza's response to difficult situations differ from the other characters? And our focus standards for today are comparing and contrasting Esperanza's point of view to the point of view of the other characters. Our vocabulary words are influence, and that's when you have the capacity to change someone else's behavior or character. So you would draw a line to this picture where this stick person is influencing this other person's ability to see in color. The second word is visa, and that is a signature or an endorsement on your passport, indicating that you have permission to enter, leave, or stay in a country for a specific period of time. So you want to visit another country, you need a visa. And the next word is discreetly, and that's when you do something in a careful manner so that you can keep something a secret or so that you can avoid being embarrassed. Go ahead and turn the page. And as we're reading the second half of chapter 4, we want you to underline fast evidence for Esperanza. We want to know, how is she responding to challenge? We are on page 50, so go ahead and turn in your book to page 50. We're on the bottom of page 50. The next day, Abuelita's sisters came for her in a wagon. The nuns, dressed in their black and white habits, gently lifted Abuelita into the back. They pulled the blanket under her chin, and Esperanza went to her and held her hand. She remembered the night that Alfonso and Miguel brought Papa home in the wagon. How long ago was that? She knew it had only been a few weeks, but it seemed like many lifetimes ago. Esperanza tenderly hugged and kissed Abuelita. My nieta, we won't be able to communicate. The mail is unpredictable, and I'm sure your uncles will be watching my correspondence. But I will come. Of that you can be certain. While you are waiting, finish this for me. She handed Esperanza the bundle of crocheting. Look at the zigzag of the blanket, mountains and valleys. Right now you are in the bottom of a valley, and your problems loom big around you. But soon you will be at the top of a mountain again. After you have lived many mountains and valleys, we will be together. Through tears, Esperanza said, Please get well. Please come to me. Turn the page. All right, and make sure that you have that saying underlined at the bottom of page 51. Through tears, Esperanza said, Please get well. Please come to us. Press pause to write down that quote in the sayings and play when you're ready to keep reading. Let's keep going. Top of page 52. I promise, and you promise to take care of Mama for me. Next, it was Mama's turn. Esperanza could not watch. She buried her head in Hortensia's shoulder until she heard the wagon pulling away. Then she went to Mama and put her arms around her. They watched the wagon disappear down the path until it was a speck in the distance, until even the dust was gone. That's when Esperanza noticed the old truck with the leather straps that the nuns had left. What's in that trunk? She asked. Our papers to travel and clothes from the poor box at the convent. The poor box? People donate them, said Mama, for others who cannot afford to buy their own. Mama, at a time like this, must we worry about some poor family who needs clothes? Esperanza, said Mama, We have little money, and Hortensia, Alfonso, and Miguel are no longer our servants. We are indebted to them for our finances and our future. And that trunk of clothes for the poor, Esperanza, it is for us. All right, we'll stop right there because we have another action for Esperanza at the top of page 52. Underline, Esperanza could not watch. She buried her head in Hortensia's shoulder until she heard the wagon pull away. Underline that sentence and put an A out beside it, and then you can write it down as the first action in box 2. Press pause to write down your answer and play when you're ready to keep reading. And as you notice this exchange between Esperanza and Mama on page 52, you can see that Esperanza, she's unaware that she is poor. She doesn't realize that having all of her things burned to the ground means that she doesn't have anything anymore. That has not sunk in. She thinks that, Mama is trying to do some charity work for some poor family, when in actuality, she is the person who's going to receive charity. Let's keep reading, underlining fast evidence for Esperanza. Senor Rodriguez was the only person they could trust. He came at dark for secret meetings, always carrying a basket of figs for the grieving family to disguise his real reason for visiting. Esperanza fell asleep each night on a blanket on the floor, listening to the adults' hushed voices and mysterious plans. After smelling the plentiful piles of white figs that she knew would never be eaten. At the end of the week, Esperanza was sitting on the small step to Hortensia and Alfonso's cabin when Tio Luis rode up. He remained on his horse and sent Alfonso to bring Mama. In a few moments, Mama walked toward them, drying her hands on her apron. She held her head high and looked beautiful, even dressed in the old clothes from the poor box. Luis, I have considered your proposal. Turn the page. And in the entrance of the servants in Esperanza, I will marry you in due time. But you must begin replanting and rebuilding immediately, as the servants need their jobs. Esperanza was quiet and stared at the dirt, hiding the smirk on her face. Tio Luis could not contain his grin. He sat up straighter. I knew you would come to your senses, Ramona. I will announce the engagement at once. Mama nodded, almost bowing. One more thing, she said. We will need a wagon to visit Abuelita. She's at the convent in La Purísima. I must see her every few weeks. I will send one over this afternoon, said Tio Luis, smiling. A new one, and those clothes, Ramona, they are not fitting of a woman of your stature, and Esperanza looks like a waif. I will send a dressmaker next week with new fabrics. In the nicest way possible, Esperanza looked up and said, Thank you, Tio Luis. I am happy that you will take care of us. Yes, of course, he said, not even glancing at her. Esperanza smiled at him anyway, because she knew she would never spend a night in the same house with him, and he would never be her stepfather. She almost wished that she would be able to see his face when he realized that they had escaped. He wouldn't be grinning like a proud rooster then. All right, we'll stop right there because we want to make sure we have these thoughts of Esperanza's underlined and recorded. Underline the first sentence in this paragraph. Esperanza smiled at him anyway because she knew she would never spend a night in the same house with him and he would never be her stepfather. She almost wished she would be able to see his face when he realized they'd escaped. Make sure you have that underlined with a T out beside it, and you can go ahead and write that quote in the box for the thoughts. Press pause to write down your answer and play when you're ready to keep reading. The night before the dressmaker was scheduled to come, Mama woke Esperanza in the middle of the night, and they left with only what they could carry. Esperanza held a valise filled with clothes, a small package of tamales, and her doll from Papa. She and Mama and Hortensia were wrapped in dark shawl to blend in with the night. Alright, underline that sentence. She and Mama and Hortensia were wrapped in dark shawls to blend into the night. Put an A out beside it. This shows that they are escaping in secret at night. Press pause to write down the quote in the actions box and play when you're ready to keep reading. They could not take a chance on walking on the road, so Miguel and Alfonso led them through the grape rows, weaving across Papa's land toward the Rodriguez ranch. Turn the page. There was enough moonlight so they could see the outlines of the twisted and charred trunks, the burned-out vines rolling in parallel lines toward the mountains. It looked as if someone had taken a giant comb, dipped it in black paint, and gently swirled it across the huge canvas. They reached the fig orchard that separated Papa's land from Señor Rodriguez's. Alfonso, Hortensia, and Miguel walked ahead, but Esperanza held back and pulled on Mama's hand to keep her there for a moment. They turned to look at what used to be El Rancho de las Rosas in the distance. Sadness and anger tangled in Esperanza's stomach as she thought of all that she was leaving, her friends and her school, her life as it once was, Abuelita and Papa. She felt as though she were leaving him too. We'll stop right there. We have a couple pieces of evidence we want to add. We want to add this part about how Esperanza and her mother turn and look at El Rancho de las Rosas one last time. Underline this sentence, they turned and looked at what used to be El Rancho de las Rosas in the distance. Put an A out beside that for actions and write that down in the last part of box 2. Press pause to write down your answer and play when you're ready for the next piece. And then we want to write down these feelings of Esperanza as she's looking out one last time at the place that she's always called home. And it says she feels sadness and anger tangled in Esperanza's stomach as she thought of all she was leaving. Okay, you want to underline these sentences. Put a F out beside them for feelings. You can write that down in box 1. Press pause to write down your answer and play when you're ready to keep reading. Right at the bottom of page 56. As if reading her mind, Mama said, Papa's heart will find us wherever we go. Then Mama took a determined breath and headed toward the sprawling trees. Esperanza followed but hesitated every few steps, looking back. She hated leaving, but how could she stay? With each stride, Papa's land became smaller and smaller. She hurried after Mama, knowing that she might never come back to her home again, and her heart filled with venom for Tia Louise. When she turned around one last time, she could see nothing behind but the trail of splattered figs she had resentfully smashed beneath her feet. Alright, and so now we're thinking, what do all these details reveal about Esperanza as a person? She is sad to leave her home. She's sad to leave Abuelita. And she's like really struggling with the idea that she's poor. She does not understand at all about this new life she's about to have in the United States. But she is glad that she's not going to have to be with Tia Louise. And so in box 4B, we would write, Esperanza is grieving the loss of her father and leaving everything she's ever known. She is having a difficult time accepting her new life. Press pause to write down your answer and play when you're ready for the paragraph. It says, how does Esperanza respond to challenge? What does this reveal about her character?